everyone. Thanks for joining us. My name is Rudy Betancourt. I'm actually a full-time firefighter paramedic in the southeastern part of the state, going back to school for my bachelor's, and part of my educational program involves me doing an internship, and I'm doing that with Ascension EAP. So I'll be co-presenting this PowerPoint here with Leah. She'll be kind of filling in the blanks as the house expert on all things EAP and stress. So thank you for joining us. I definitely appreciate your time. Leah, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. So my name is Leah Zamborski. As Rudy said, I'm with Ascension EAP. And if you're not familiar with EAP, it's a benefit provided by your company for free and confidential counseling. And we're set up to do short-term solution-focused counseling, so about 6 or 8 sessions for most of our contracts. And that's per problem. So if you come in today because you're having work stress, and then, we do a few sessions of counseling, things start to feel better, so we close the case, and then down the road you realize that you're having some family struggles, that's a different problem. So you can call us and we'll reopen the case. It's not per year, which is nice. The benefit also extends to your immediate household members. So that would be spouse, dependent children, and sometimes if you're a guardian over another child, something like that, those people will be included as well, as long as they live in your household. We have counselors who answer the phone Monday through Friday during business hours. So if you just need to troubleshoot an issue or you need to talk to somebody right away, give us a call or shoot us an email. They're watching that email box as well. And after hours, we have an on-call service, an answering service. And if you tell them that it's an emergency, you need to talk to someone right away, they'll page a counselor to get back to you. So no matter the day or the night, you don't have to struggle alone. So I am a counselor with the EAP. I'm a licensed professional counselor. But in addition to that, I'm also the training coordinator. So I love setting up sessions like this one, and I'm really grateful that you decided to join us today. So thank you.
All right. So as the title says, this is about enjoying the holidays during a pandemic. Obviously, it's an unprecedented time. The holidays kind of have their own stressors involved in and of itself, and then coupling a pandemic on top of that, sure to create a unique, stressful environment. So we'll kind of talk about that, and we kind of phrase it as enjoying the holidays as opposed to maybe looking down on the holidays because of the stress, because that kind of reframes it in the brain to make more of a positive kind of note on the subject. So we can still celebrate even though there's a pandemic, right? Holidays are meant to be a time of joy and fill the tradition and togetherness. But this holiday season's literally going to be like no other, right? Traditions and activities that have been staples in families for years may no longer be had this year because of quarantine and fear of getting sick and everything else. And that's starting to become a norm, right? Togetherness may pose a safety risk for vulnerable people like your parents or grandparents or children, and everyone's comfortability levels differ in that aspect amongst families. Coupling the financial strain, there's a lot of moving pieces this season. So this session should be able to prepare for the holiday season ahead. Hopefully, get a little something out of it. Feel more confident in saying no to people, places, and things that make you uncomfortable, and saying yes to things that are most important, which is you, and your health and safety, and your family's health and safety. So some of our objectives that we'll be talking about is we'll consider how you might manage holiday gatherings. Thanksgiving's right around the corner, and then the holidays after that. We'll discover some ways to set boundaries and limits. Some of us have a lot of work to do in that front too, especially bringing work into the home life and home into the work life. We'll kind of briefly touch on that. We'll discuss some strategies on constructive conflict and how we approach it. We'll consider holiday budgets and ways to stick to it. We'll acknowledge and cope with grief and discuss ways to enhance our self-care. So our first section is holiday gatherings. So we'll kind of touch on that, and towards the end we'll have some kind of self-reflected questions to ask ourselves. This presentation does come with a workbook, which you can find on the Ascension EAP site. So feel free to download that and work through it on your own. There's a lot of good thought-provoking questions on there that if you print it off, you can use it as a journal. But coupled with the presentation is sure to maximize your benefit they get. So a prominent factor impacting this holiday season is obviously, the fact that everyone's got varying opinions and comfort levels surrounding the pandemic in itself. And, the best thing we can do is, be compassionate with one another, have patience, and understand that we all are coming from different places with different backgrounds and different opinions on these things. So taking a non-judgmental approach to accepting our loved ones' personal decisions, to mask or unmask or gather or isolate, exchanging gifts, is one way to avoid creating unnecessary stress. Some of the ways we do that is through acceptance, being genuine, and being empathetic. So acceptance being, at its root, avoiding the judgment and criticism, and respect, and accept differences. Being genuine, making sure your insides match your outsides. So most people can tell if you're kind of, BSing them or not by your body language and your facial expressions. So being conscious of that and being self-aware of that, and teaching ourselves how to be kind and compassionate people inside and empathy. By far one of the most powerful tools in the toolbox. Essentially, it's putting yourself in other people's shoes, right? So you're kind of seeing the world from their perspective. Maybe you don't agree with their decision, which is definitely okay, but can you at least understand where they're coming from? So some communication tips here. You don't need to respond right away. Slow the conversation down. Think through it. Take a pause. Take a breath. Most people in general listen to respond as opposed to listen to understand. And some of the ways we do that is through utilizing some active listening skills. So when we can do that, it's through open-ended questionings and saying things like, tell me why this is important to you. Paraphrasing and maybe saying, so it sounds like this is what you're saying. And then you kind of repeat back kind of the subject at hand. Making sure you guys are on the same page so you have a full understanding of each other's point of view before you offer your own. And if things get heated, take a break, take a walk, take a pause, take a breath. It's hard to practice non-judgmental communication when your stress response is kicked in because your adrenaline's pumping and you're kind of amped up. So think it through. This will kind of be a theme that you'll kind of see throughout this part. Think before you respond. Be prepared. Something we can do is anticipate and prepare a response in advance, especially around the holidays. One of the big topics is, why are you going to be coming, to X event? Are you going to have a mask? Having these, questions already pre-thought out and prepared can help you deal with those situations.
So what for each section, we're going to wrap up with some self-reflection questions. And again, these are in the packet, so we'll put that in the link below so that you can access that packet. But just think through, what is your family's comfort level in gathering during the pandemic? Would you say that your family is nervous, cautious, or comfortable? And based on your comfort level, what are you comfortable doing this holiday season? Is there anyone who may be put at risk if you gather? And if so, how will you address that? What guidelines would you like to implement to keep yourself and others safe? Maybe about masks or food handling or anything like that, distancing. What phrases could you say in order to decline invitations? Sometimes it's really helpful to have those phrases and sentences in mind, like, oh, I prepared for this. I know what to say when you ask me to do something I don't want to do. I know for me, when I'm caught off guard, I'm like a deer in headlights. I'm definitely not an on-the-spot thinker. And finally, what can you tell yourself to stay strong in your holiday gathering intention? So how will you coach yourself through this? For example, my decision is mine to make, or I can make the choice that's right for me and my family. It's okay if other people get upset. I'm not responsible for their feelings, things like that. So the next section is boundaries and limits. So talking a lot about assertiveness, and this is easy for some people, not so easy for others. When setting boundaries, it's normal to get pushback, especially if this is a new thing for you. If you're typically the passive, go along, don't want to make waves person, and now this year you're standing up and saying, no, there are some things that I'm absolutely not going to do. Other people might get a little upset by that, or might think that you're being bossy, or they might challenge you because they don't think you're serious, right? Setting boundaries isn't an easy thing, especially if you're first starting out. But be kind and be firm. And here are some tips to get you started. Be clear and specific. So what sounds more convincing? Oh, I'm not sure what we're doing yet, or we're not coming to grandma's this year. If somebody said either of those sentences to you, which one would you take more seriously? And likewise, who's going to take you more seriously? Or when you say those things, which one is going to help you to be taken more seriously? Another example, I don't think I'll have time to make the pies versus I won't have time to make the pies. The bakery has a great selection, right? So think about how you can phrase things in a way that's clear, specific, and firm. Now, some people think that the second sentence is mean, but there's really nothing mean about it. You're being clear, you're being honest, you're being fair to yourself, you're being fair to other people by letting them know your intentions and not making them guess about what you may or may not do this year. And I know that that's a common feeling for people who are just starting out in assertiveness, that it feels mean, but I promise the more that you practice it, the more you're going to realize it's not mean. It's actually being kind to myself and to other people, to be just really clear about my intentions up front. Use I statements. It avoids defensiveness. When conversations become defensive, it's usually best to take a break, walk away, calm down, and come back, because usually nothing good happens when people are defensive or angry. And by opening conversations with I statements, it helps to decrease that defensiveness so there can be open, honest communication. And the formula is simple. I feel blank when you blank, and I need blank. So here's an example. I feel unimportant when you insist on doing things I'm not comfortable with, and I need you to hear my perspective and respect my opinion. I've taught I statements a lot, and I've gotten feedback that some people use them incorrectly on a fairly frequent basis. So I just want to point out that I think you are a jerk maybe technically is an I statement, but it's not using it in the correct way, and it's probably going to make people a little bit angry and defensive. So avoid that kind of I statement. I think you're a jerk. Instead, use the formula that I propose. I feel upset when you talk over me, and I need you to listen better. Something like that. And be patient. People are going to test you. They are going to see if they can just maybe get you to crack a little bit, or they're going to keep harping on you, or whatever. Lots of people have different reactions when they are told no, or people set boundaries that they don't like. So use the broken record technique. Example, we're not coming. I'm sorry, it's just not going to work this year. I know you're disappointed that we're not coming. Maybe we'll consider next year, but this year we can't come. Not this time. I know this may be Aunt Hilda's last Christmas, but we've made our decision. So you see, it's basically the same message repeated in different ways. And if you think about the other participant, what they might be saying that would elicit these responses, they're probably begging, they're probably cajoling, maybe they're laying down guilt trips. You know, Aunt Hilda doesn't have much time to live. Sometimes those guilt trips get us, but don't let it. If that's your boundary, stick to it. Yes, maybe that's true, but this is still our decision. Repeat your message the same way, the same message in different ways. So self-reflection wrap up for this section. What holiday activities or traditions are you really excited for this year? So for example, I am a Christmas tree person. We already have our Christmas tree up, and that is something I'm really excited about, the decorations. Driving around watching lights, that's wonderful to me and my family. We all enjoy it. What things do you not want to be pressured into this year? What phrases can you use to decline invitations or obligations? What are some other ways of phrasing your regrets, that broken record technique? And what can you tell yourself to stay strong in your holiday boundary intentions? Again, that inner coach. What can your coach say? My decision to gather is mine to make. This is the right decision for our family. I can stay strong in my intentions.
So this next section involves conflict, right? And, everyone loves conflict. Families don't have any conflict at all, right? Especially during the holidays. So we'll kind of be going through how to approach different conflicts and maybe some things you can implement this holiday season. So hot topics, right? These are all the problem starters. Media, politics. We just got through a huge election. That's sure to be a hot topic, right? Criticisms of cooking, comments about your weight, poor management, parenting. The list can go on and on. But as a general rule, think about leaving all those discussions and topics at the door, and just try to focus on, the true meaning of why you guys are there, and enjoying each other's company. So in the event that a rule is broken, a couple things you can do. So mainly respond wisely, right? This goes back to think and respond. So you want to control your physiological reactions and counter that fight or flight system, which is either you're shutting it down or you're showing up to the fight and you're coming right back at them. One of the first and best things you could probably do is take a deep breath, practice breathing techniques. And we'll go over one here shortly as a practice, but take a deep breath, focus on your belly, activate that vagus nerve to help kind of relax the body, relax the shoulders, right? And smile. Fake it till you make it. You've probably heard that. A lot of studies have shown that when you actually are smiling and forcing yourself to smile, you inherently are releasing all those positive, happy endorphins and activating those neuroreceptors to increase, your dopamine and serotonin in the brain to help boost your mood. So here's an exercise you can kind of do in your workbook or within yourself. Think of the most offensive person you can and imagine that at their worst. What are they talking about? What hot topics are they just spewing on about, whether it be politics or religion? And they're just not stopping, and they just won't stop. What's your stress level? Is it an 8? Is it a 10? Everyone's a little different, but you still get ramped up, right? So one of the things we can do is called box breathing. You might have heard it, called naval box breathing, maybe 4x4 box breathing. But basically, the concept is this. So a square has 4 sides, right? So each portion of this is going to be 4 seconds long. So what we can do is get comfortable in your chair, right? Feet on the ground. And you can close your eyes if you want, whatever's going to make you comfortable. And we're just going to inhale for 4 seconds. We're going to hold it for 4 seconds. And then slowly exhale through the mouth for 4 seconds. Hold it for the last 4 seconds. And then we'll just repeat the cycle back and forth. And I think you'll find that you'll start to ground yourself and start to simmer down and decrease that stress level. So we'll take a couple seconds here and do a couple rounds of it. Sometimes what you can do too is trace out a square either on a table or on your leg to kind of help you keep track and keep you, in that mode. So we'll start by inhaling. We'll hold it for 4 seconds. And we'll exhale for 4 seconds. Or hold for another 4. Inhale. Hold it. Exhale. Release all that stress. We'll hold it for another 4. One last inhale. Expanding that chest. Hold it. Exhale for 4 seconds. And hold it. So as you repeat this and kind of, you almost have to exercise it, almost like, you're going to the gym and you're trying to develop a habit essentially. So if you keep practicing this, whether it be daily, when you feel stressed, you start feeling amped up, I think you'll find that you'll have some benefit for it. There's a bunch of other different techniques out there that you can research. This is just one example. I encourage you to find something out there that works for you, because what works for me may not necessarily work for you, which may not necessarily work for Leah. So I don't know about you, but just doing that for the few seconds there, I did find myself become a little more stressed, or a little less stressed rather, sorry. It helps ground yourself and it kind of helps you decompress and kind of come back to baseline. Another thing we do is, be conscious of avoiding personalizing. And that's basically saying that most people's opinions have nothing to do with you, so don't make it about you. You may perceive it as it's about you, but you don't know what's going on in their life. Maybe they're just kind of spouting off about whatever topic that you think is directed towards you. Most of the time, it's not. So unless you have all the facts and can get the big picture, realize you're not the king and queen of everything. It's not your job to set the record straight or convince Uncle Sam of his ignorance. That's not your job. Another big one is avoid alcohol and other drugs. We all know that too much alcohol can make things a lot worse, especially in conjunction with a conflict at hand. So if you're going to use it with moderation, okay, or just avoid it completely. And the best advice from a very wise philosopher that you may have heard in the past is, "I'm rubber and you are glue. Wherever you say bounces off of me and sticks right back to you." How many of you have heard that in your life, right? Still holds true. But in other words, I don't have to respond to that. You could say it's not my circus, not my monkeys, or take a pause and say, "God, grant me the serenity." Find something that works for you. For me personally, if I'm in a situation like this, I like to say, you know what, this person's doing the best that they can, and I keep telling myself that until I start coming down. They're doing the best that they can. They're doing the best that they can. That's kind of their thing. So find something that works for you. And then some self-reflections here. When faced with conflict, what's within your control, and that's your behaviors, your words, and your breathing. You control all of that, and a lot of times you can do it without even showing anyone that you're doing it. In reference to the breathing, you can take those deep breaths and practice those box breathing techniques without anyone even knowing. That's the beauty of it. These things are not on my control. That's other people's behaviors. Those are other people's words, other people's opinions. You can't control their opinion. That's more within their right. But what you can focus on is yourself and how you're portraying your thoughts and actions. What can you tell yourself to stay strong and with your intentions to celebrate a calm, conflict-free holiday? For example, maybe saying to yourself, I'll breathe in and out as opposed to pouting. Or I accept people for who they are without judgment.
All right, so the next section, we're going to talk about that holiday budget. Financial stress is one of the most difficult parts of the holiday season for some people. For some, it's a matter of self-discipline to reel in spending on decoration, food, parties, gifts. That's where I'm guilty. But for others, it's a matter of stretching money for holiday fun when it's already a struggle to pay the bills. And I've certainly been in that boat as well. So let's be honest, a few holiday spending tips aren't going to change your financial situation around. Most people who struggle in this area need a bit more. So one thing that I recommend, just kind of big picture about finances, is to get educated. I've taken the Dave Ramsey Crown Financial Peace University and found it to be extremely helpful. I'm not going to say that I follow all the principles to a T. I don't. I lack self-discipline, okay? Self-disclosure here. But it's been extremely helpful in knowing what I need to do to stay on track, and I've certainly taken steps to get to better manage my money. So I would highly recommend something like Dave Ramsey's program or another program. It doesn't have to be Dave Ramsey. Ask your friends and family what they've used that have been helpful, and pursue those things. They truly are worth it. Next, get organized. Most people have never taken a financial inventory, or it's been a while since you've done that. So I highly recommend this workbook by the American Consumer Credit Counseling. It's a pretty hefty workbook, maybe about 30 pages, but it's going to help you keep track of, all your life insurance policies and all of your, documenting the money that's coming in and budgeting the money that's going out, and help you to balance that and what debts you have to pay off. Like, it just helps you to put everything in one place and in perspective so that you can really be smart about what you want to do going forward. So get organized and then get serious. Start and stick to a budget. Enlist the help of an accountability partner. For a lot of people, that's your spouse. But for some people, let's face it, their spouse is not going to help them be accountable in financial spending. So if you don't have a person who can hold you accountable, consider calling your EAP and letting an EAP counselor be that person. We don't have necessarily expertise in financial management. We would probably refer you to other resources that are more versed in that than us. But we certainly can help you put together a basic budget, and we can hold you accountable. Do that weekly phone call or weekly meeting to say, hey, were you able to stick to your budget this week? How's that going? What are the hard parts? How can I help you? And then celebrate your success with you. That's one of the fun parts of EAP. So do you want to know the 3 simple secrets to financial security? I bet you do. And they're so simple. You're going to be shocked when you hear these. Number 1, pay off debt. Number 2, increase your savings. Number 3, invest in your future. And if you do those 3 things pretty consistently over your lifespan, you will probably be pretty financially secure. But I know for many of us, definitely myself included, it's much easier said than done. Even though I know that's my path to financial freedom, I tend to still overspend on things that I don't need. And, I'm sure you know. So if you're looking for holiday spending tips specifically for the holidays, I got you covered. Here's a few things you can do. Start with the holiday budget worksheet from the American Consumer Credit Counseling and start in advance. So I know that we're coming up to the holidays already, and a lot of people who are good at this stuff have been thinking about Christmas in July. They're starting to plan and budget and buy presents so that it's not a huge shock in December. But it's still not too late. So think about how much you can spend per week on Christmas and start managing and figuring that out. And then be more creative. Consider thoughtful but inexpensive gifts, clever but cheap decorations, and budget-friendly ways to cut costs. I'm a huge thrift store lover. It's kind of like gambling. I don't know if you're into gambling, but I'm not at all. But going to Goodwill is kind of my gambling because I go in and like time after time, it's like, oh, I didn't really find anything today. And then that one time you go in and you see that beautiful item at the perfect price. And then if it's got a half off sticker, it's even better. And it's like, oh, jackpot, right? So I don't know if you get into thrifting like I do, but you can find some great stuff there for great prices. Maybe do a cookie swap with friends. And I know with the pandemic season, that's a little bit, some people are leery about sharing food, but maybe if you throw the cookies in the freezer for a while, that might help. I'm not sure. Or consider the gifts of quality time or acts of service. So for example, my kids have so much stuff and my mom was like, what more stuff can I buy them this year? And please don't buy them more stuff. So I really encouraged her to think about some quality time, some memories that she can make with them. And together we were able to come up with some really creative ideas. And when we've done this session in person, people really resonated with that they're finding that the more meaningful gifts rather than the materialistic gifts are where it counts.
I'll add too, Leah, that especially with the quarantines and the state nationwide shutdowns that have been happening, a lot of people have been picking up new hobbies and new things like crafting or woodworking. So this could be an opportunity to show off those newfound skills and make something and craft something for your family that might mean a lot more than you just going to a store and buying something. This kind of comes from the heart, and there might be a little more love attached to that. So just another tip.
Yeah, love that. So get tough with yourself. Don't let yourself cut corners or overspend even just this once, because we know that once leads to twice and things get off track really fast. But if you do, relapse is a part of the recovery cycle. It's bound to happen on occasion. Just forgive yourself for that indiscretion and get back on track and make the commitment that I'm gonna stick to it today. Leave guilt at the door. Remind yourself that your budget isn't personal. And I talk to a lot of people who feel really guilty if they need to cut back the present budget this year and kids aren't going to get as much, or this person always buys them a gift and they just don't have the money to reciprocate. Remind yourself that your budget isn't personal. It is what it is. We're all in different spots, and that's okay. And just because you don't buy somebody a gift doesn't mean you don't love them. So leave guilt at the door and consider joining a holiday club. It's probably too late to do that at this point this year, but a lot of banks have these where they will divert part of your direct deposits into a special savings account that you don't have access to until December, when you can use that money for the holidays. So it's a nice way for people like me who are undisciplined, and we're going to spend that money that it's accumulating over the year, and then in December I have it. So that can be a good strategy for some people. Self-reflection. List every person you want to buy a gift for and the amount you will spend on each person. So start planning out that budget now if you haven't already. What creative ideas do you have to cut costs? What will you tell yourself if you start to feel guilty for not spending enough? And list 3 ways you will de-emphasize the material aspect of the holidays and instead focus on family, self-care, and spirituality.
All right, next we have a topic everyone loves talking about is coping with grief, right? Grief's kind of its own stress on top of everything else that we're dealing with the holidays. Especially those during a pandemic, maybe accompanied with even more grief and sadness, and despair, or other unpleasant feelings, and that can be a result from losing a loved one, not being able to gather because someone's quarantined. Holidays also highlight changes in your life negatively, like a divorce or a death or a separation. When you visit family members or relatives, you might stir up some unpleasant memories in a blended family situation. Maybe someone feels left out. And I encourage you, if you do find out that someone's being left out, or you sense that someone's being isolated, reach out to them, give them a nice text or phone call, FaceTime them, send them a card, something that kind of grabs them out of that isolated self quarantine that they kind of created for themselves. Make them feel involved. Some other tips for dealing with grief: identify how you're feeling. So it's about improving your emotional vocabulary, right? So do a quick Google search, find a list of emotions, and then pick your top 2. And once you find those, you can acknowledge those and begin to start mitigating those and kind of diving a little deeper. Breaking the stigma. Like I said, it's okay to feel the way you're feeling, and remind yourself and others that it's okay to talk about those emotions, because I guarantee you, if you're feeling that, someone else in the room or within your family is also feeling that, and it's good to talk about that and get that off our chest. It's a good way to connect as well. Be mindful about what we're doing and why. If you're withdrawing from family because you need to recharge, with the stress of everything else going on, that's one thing. But if you're withdrawing from others because it's easier to be alone, that might be a red flag. And that's something where you can start taking those next steps and maybe talk to a trusted friend or a spouse, family member, and reaching out to EAP as well, just to start, digging deep and finding out what's going on. And knowing when it's too much. It is normal to feel sad sometimes, especially after a loss. If your feelings are overwhelming, you might find it difficult to cope or not, be able to function normally. That's kind of a sign that you might need to ask for some help. And EAP is definitely there for that. And, it is free. It is confidential. No one's going to go back to your family members and tell them what happened. No one's going to know that you called. And the beauty behind EAP is when you call their number, you're getting an intake counselor. You're getting a licensed counselor behind that line. You're not talking to someone who you don't understand from another country. You're not talking to just a messenger person that's going to, deflect you to someone else. You're talking to a counselor right then and there to start. And many people who feel nervous about EAP later report that, they're glad that they did. In 2019, at 95% satisfaction rate, which is amazing. And not just for grief, but for everything else. Personal growth, workplace growth, financial situations, and tips and tricks like Leah kind of alluded to. There's a plethora of things that they can help you with. Grief is just one of them. And then our self-reflection section. Let's consider some things that haven't changed this holiday season. I'm kind of in Leah's boat as well. All my Christmas stuff is already out, and I'm flaunting it all over the neighborhood. And it's not even Thanksgiving yet. So that I love Christmas, and that hasn't changed for me this holiday season. So maybe you can think of some of those things. List some ways you can connect to other loved ones that are unable to leave their homes or travel. whether it be, personal letters or FaceTimes, cards, things like that. Think of some things you can honor and celebrate those loved ones who have passed, whether it be making, a dish that they love to make, or maybe making a dish that you loved that, you guys had a relationship with. Write some things down that you're grateful for this holiday season, whether it be once a week, twice a week. Try to build that habit. Studies have shown that practicing gratitude has a positive impact on the body and the mood. And then develop a statement that's repeated frequently to help instill strength during times of those grief or sadness, like a mantra. So an example here is, different is okay. I can heal. I can grow. And repeating that a couple times also has a similar kind of grounding effect.
All right, so our last section today is self-care. Self-care is important for any season of life, but it's especially important during times of high stress. For many people, the holidays alone are a time of stress, but when you add in dynamics of a global pandemic, well, let's just say most of you aren't finding this a cakewalk. I know I'm sure not. There are many different aspects of self-care, sometimes known as dimensions. Consider each dimension and how you can be well during a pandemic holiday season. So most of you have probably seen some sort of depiction of this wellness wheel here. There are usually about 6 or 8 different pieces of the pie. So we'll talk quickly about each of these. We'll start over on the left-hand side where it says physical. And physical is the basic things that we need, like adequate sleep and rest, healthy diet, high in nutrition to keep our chemical balances working well, our neurotransmitters and our digestive tract and our sleep hormones. And all of that stuff takes vitamins and nutrients to keep it going. So when we're depleted and when we're stressed out, we become imbalanced. It just adds to the cycle. So make sure you're getting enough nutrients. Sleep, nutrients, and exercise, of course, is the last of the trifecta. But there are also things like going to the doctor, getting your checkups, brushing your teeth, going to the dentist, everything that it takes to keep your body healthy and well. Relational wellness is having people that support you and people that you support, give and take. And those might be different groups of people. I know there are people that I support that I would not go to for support, but there are people that I would. And research finds that the quality of relationships is much more important than quantity. It doesn't matter that you have 1,000 Facebook friends. It matters if you have 1 or 2 really strong connections in your life, people you can depend on and trust. Occupational wellness, things like compassion, satisfaction, that you feel like you help today, that you're productive, that you make a difference, that your work matters, that you have a healthy work culture and team. And we know the impact that unhealthy work environments and occupational stress causes. We're at work more than we're at home with their families and friends, typically for most people. And so when that's not going well, it affects everything. So hopefully, occupational wellness is high in your life. Emotional wellness, being able to identify your emotions, to express them appropriately. So we talked a little bit, I think, about the emotional vocabulary and grief, but being able to just put a word to how you're feeling. I had one client whose only word was irate, and everything that upset him made him irate. He was just irate about this and irate about that. And so when we slowed down and we said, there's a lot more feelings than just irate. Maybe you're frustrated. Maybe you're angry. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're, there's so many other things to it. So being able to accurately identify feelings and then being able to express them appropriately. Intellectual wellness, keeping your brain healthy and sharp by, again, those vitamin and nutrients are so important, but also things like critical thinking, ongoing learning new things on your job, maybe going back to school, engaging in hobbies and interests, riddles, Sudoku, puzzles, chess, things like that. Spiritual wellness really boils down to 2 questions. What is the purpose of my life? And am I connected to something bigger than myself? And a lot of people get their spiritual needs met through their faith or their religion. And you can understand why that would be. The connection to something bigger would be God or the church community. The purpose of a person's life might be to, shine the light of God or to make a positive difference. But people can get spiritual needs met without faith or religion. It can be, connection to nature, connection to your community, advocating for populations, raising a healthy family. Those are, the possibilities are endless there, but it really boils down to answering those 2 fundamental questions. And then financial wellness, we already talked about the 3 simple strategies to being financially stable, increasing your savings, paying down debt, and investing in your future. Easier said than done, but there's lots of help available if you want to take steps on that. So thinking about all of these dimensions, you're probably doing really well in some of these areas. So as a counselor, I think that my emotional well-being is probably off the charts compared to most people. I'm really high in spirituality as well. Physical, not so much. It comes down to that consistency and that self-discipline thing. It's just hard for me. But luckily, my husband is really strong in physical, so it's nice that we balance each other out. So just kind of take an inventory right now. Where are you strong? What do you struggle with? And looking into the holiday season, what is going to be difficult for you? And we've heard from people that, the holiday eating is a struggle for a lot of people. So thinking about that in advance, how you're going to prepare for that, or just other ways that you can take breaks, rest, recharge, do things that are good for you, keep your wellness high. So today, in summary, we considered how you might manage holiday gatherings, thinking through those scenarios. It's going to be different for everybody. We can't give you the answer, but hopefully we've given you some tools to prepare for that. Discover ways to set boundaries and limits. Discuss strategies for constructive conflict. Consider your holiday budget and ways to stick to it. Acknowledge and cope with grief, and discuss ways to enhance self-care. So thank you so much for your participation in this. And here's our contact information at Ascension EAP. We are very happy to help. Give us a call, send us an email, and have a great rest of your day. Take good care.